Hi, this is JD, and we're going to get started in just a moment here. Let me check a couple things on my end on the technical side, and we'll start in just a moment. All right. Well, welcome everybody to a wonderful July evening, and hopefully all of your air conditions are working good. Every year, I wonder, why did we move to Arizona? I wonder that every year in July and August, and then in December, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why we moved here. Okay, because the Decembers, Januarys, and Februarys really are beautiful months in Arizona. So today's talk is we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on currently in the economic world in college. We're going to talk about how to not go broke, paying for college, and I like to call this talk, You Don't Know What You Don't Know About College, But You Really Need to Know. And one of those things is the college ranking system. There are several different publications, and probably the most prevalent publication is U.S. News and World Report Best Colleges Edition. Forbes has one, Money Magazine, etc. There's over a dozen different college ranking publications. This one, U.S. News, happens to be the most popular. And here's a breakdown of the rankings. And some of the rankings in here are kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And one of those rankings is peer assessment at 25%. And basically what that means is, if you vote for me, I'll vote for you, kind of a thing. So have you asked yourself, why would a college give out scholarships? Is it because they're generous and kind, or because they want or need a specific student? And the answer is they want or need a specific student. So a little history on the ranking system is that what colleges have figured out is, if there is an upward trend in any of the rankings, so if there's an upward trend in any of the rankings, that's going to attract more attention. And with more attention comes more applications. And of course, with more applications comes more application fees. So last year, University of California, Berkeley was rated the #1 public national university, and they had 110,000 students apply to their college. And it costs $70 to apply. So if you do the math on that, it's $7.5 million that was generated just in application fees. So of course, colleges want to have an upward trend in their rankings to attract more students and ultimately make more money. So when they're looking at students, they're asking many questions. And one of those questions is, how will this student impact our rankings? Will this student impact our rankings on a positive, negative, or a neutral, in a neutral way? If the student's going to have a negative impact on their rankings, then they will not admit the student. If the student's going to have a neutral impact on that particular college's rankings, then maybe they'll admit them and maybe they'll give them some scholarships. If the college is looking at a student and says, yes, this student will have a positive impact on our rankings, then they're going to do whatever they can to get that student to attend their college. And what we want them to do is offer better scholarship packages. Now we're going to learn several acronyms today. And the first acronym that we're going to learn is cost of attendance. When you're looking at the cost of attendance, that includes everything: tuition, fees, books, student ID card, parking pass, the meal plan, the whole gambit. We want to know what that number is. So you can go to any college's website and in the search window type in cost of attendance, and it'll bring you to that page, and you simply just add all of those numbers together, and that's what your cost is for 1 year. Now, as I'm going through this presentation, if you do have any questions, please use the chat feature that's available on this YouTube page. And at the end of the presentation, if there's time, I'll answer as many questions as I can. So again, go to that website. For example, you can go to ASU's website, click on the search window, type in cost of attendance. It'll bring you to that page. And the cost to attend Arizona State University for 1 year, that would be living in the dorms, the whole thing, including a meal plan, is about $30,000 for 1 year. Now, please do this as well. Please visit as many colleges as you can. And we've got several colleges right here in town. We've got ASU, of course. We've got Grand Canyon University. And we also have Arizona Christian University. Please plan, once everything opens back up and you're able to physically go and visit these campuses, please do that. The reason why am encouraging you to visit these campuses is because it is not a big time or money commitment. Half hour, maybe 45-minute drive to any one of these campuses, and then an hour or two on the tour. So it's not a big time or money commitment. So that's one reason I'm encouraging you to visit these colleges. The other reason is because when you go out of state to visit University of Chicago, or you go to San Diego and visit University of San Diego or Point Loma Nazarene in San Diego, now you've got something that you can weigh, balance, compare, and contrast. So when my daughter and I went on, we did a big road trip and we drove up to Seattle, and we visited we visited Pacific Lutheran University in Seattle and went on the tour, and the tour guide walked us around and said, here's our dorm and here's our cafeteria and here's our new science building. It's awesome. It's made out of recycled material. It's all green, has solar panels, and we were kind of impressed. We're, wow, that's kind of cool. Then we drove down to Salem, Oregon, and visited Willamette University and went on the tour. And the tour guide walked us around again and said, here's our dorm and here's our cafeteria and here's our new science building. It's awesome. It's got solar panels. We use recycled material. It's all green. And we're like, wait a minute. We just heard that up in Seattle. Then we drove down to Stockton, California, and visited the University of the Pacific and had the exact same tour. Here's our dorm. Here's our cafeteria. Here's our science building. It's awesome. Green, solar, recycled solar panels and all that stuff. And we're like, okay, cross that off as being unique and different, and we can focus on what are the true unique things at each one of these campuses. So when you visit the three schools that are here in town, ASU, GCU, and Arizona Christian University, you'll have that information to take with you so that you can compare the other colleges out of state, whether it be California, Chicago, or really anywhere in the United States. So you can weigh, balance, compare, and contrast that. So the cost to attend an in-state school, ASU, NAU, U of A, is all hovering around $30,000 per year. If your student is interested in the honors college, so NAU honors, U of A honors, or ASU Barrett, you can add some dollars on top of that. So now you're looking at about $35,000, $36,000. And does anybody want to guess what the cost is to attend a private college? For example, Sarah Lawrence University, they like to claim the #1 spot as being the most expensive college. And this year they popped $75,000 for 1 year in college, which makes UCLA look like a bargain at $63,500 for out-of-state cost. Okay. So if you really want to scare yourself, do this. Go to the college's website, as I mentioned, and in that search window, type in cost of attendance. It'll bring you to that page. Add all of those numbers together. And that's what your cost is for 1 year. Now, to really scare yourself, do this. Take that number and then multiply it times 4 years. Then multiply it again times the number of kids you got, 2 kids, 3 kids, etc. And that's enough to give anybody a coronary right there. And have you thought about how you're going to pay for it? And I've literally talked to hundreds of different families as some strategies to pay for college. And always the first one that pops up is private scholarships. My kid's going to get a private scholarship. So let's put a definition on what private scholarship means. That's a scholarship that your student applies for and wins. So if your student receives an email or a letter that says, "Congratulations, you've won a scholarship," and they have not applied for it, then it's probably a scam, especially if that letter says, "Mail us $100 and we'll tell you which one you've won." So that's the first thing, is that students have to apply for it to win it. And if they do win it, that scholarship is portable. They could take it up to NAU, they could take it out to Texas Christian University, they could take it up to Seattle University, so it's portable in that sense. Versus if your student won the Wildcat Scholarship at U of A, that's only available at the University of Arizona. Now, of the private scholarships, less than 2% of the $130 billion, that's with a B, $130 billion of financial aid consists of private scholarships. So everybody wants to go after these pennies, these private scholarships. And I want to go after the lion's share of it. And the lion's share of it's going to be in these different 3 categories. The first 2 categories are federal funds and state funds. We want to capitalize on as much of that as possible. And then the third one, which is the biggest kahuna of the 3, and that is the college's endowment funds. And there are some colleges that are rich, and then there are other colleges that are just flat uber rich. For example, Harvard claims the #1 spot as being the wealthiest college. And they have, the last time I looked, was $37 billion in their endowment. What that translates to is that the interest that's charged on the interest that they earn from that endowment is enough to give every student that they admit a 100% full ride. Now, does Harvard do that? Absolutely, they don't do that. So private scholarships is the first thing that parents have told me as a way to pay for college. Again, let's not neglect the lion's share, which is the college's endowment system. The next category that parents have told me as a way to pay for college is, well, my kid's an athlete, my kid's going to get an athletic scholarship. And I'm sorry to tell you this, that unless your student is the next NFL, the next NBA, or the next Olympian, the likelihood of getting a full athletic ride is pretty slim, especially in today's age where almost all of the sports have been canceled. I had a student meeting scheduled for tomorrow, And parents ended up calling me asking to reschedule because they decided to go out of town because their son wasn't required to show up for football practice because there isn't any. So it's going to be a very interesting year this next year for athletes as they're attempting to earn athletic scholarships. Now, if you go to the NCAA's website, it states that the average men's baseball scholarship is $5,800. That is way short of the total cost of attendance. Now, I'm not going to say no to $5,800, but if we're looking at ASU, we're still short $24,000, $25,000. Where's the rest of that money going to come from? The next strategy that parents have told me as a way to pay for college is we've saved the money. And I read a statistic that the average family has saved $10,000 to apply for college. Now, if you saved more than that, then God bless you, you're better than the average. Now the question is, of the money that you have saved, how is the financial aid system going to look at that? And there are 3 buckets of money. The first bucket of money is money that's in the student's name, and that gets assessed at the highest percentage. The second bucket of money is money that's in the parent's name, and that gets assessed at a lower percentage, anywhere from 5 to 15%, versus the student bucket, which is 25 to 50%. So sometimes just by moving money from one financial product to a different financial product based on the owner of that financial product, no, the student's not the owner, the parent is the owner of that financial product. Sometimes we can increase our chances of qualifying for additional need-based aid at colleges. Then there's a third bucket, and the third bucket has an umbrella over it, and that umbrella is the retirement system. And any money that's parked in that bucket is not assessed in the financial aid formulas. We'll talk about the 2 financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the CSS profile, in just a moment. So when we are filling out these financial aid forms, we want the bulk of our money to be in the sheltered category, so it does not impact us negatively. Now, JD, I've heard about families that have 529 plans, or we actually have a 529 plan. What's that? And how is that going to impact financial aid? Well, when President Bush left office, one of the last things that he did was he signed a bill that stated that 529s are now considered the asset of the parent. Well, thank you, JD, for telling me that, because we have a 529. Well, we're playing a poker hand here. As soon as we expose to the college, hey, I've got a 529, they're going to go, tag, that's mine, I want it, and they're going to split it into quarters. They're going to say, I want 25% the freshman year, I want 25% the sophomore year, 25 the junior and the senior year, and that. So again, they're going to want those 529 monies. And what I have seen is that parents who have paid college with a 529, that some of these colleges have actually reduced the aid package dollar for dollar. So again, sometimes by moving money around from who the owner is, from the student to the parent, or from one financial product to another financial product, we could increase our chances for qualifying for aid. Now here's my disclaimer on that. Before you move money around or any of that stuff, you need to know what the ramifications are, both positive and negative. Sometimes it's smart to move money around, sometimes it's not. Each student and each situation is unique. The next strategy that parents have told me as a way to pay for college is we're just going to pay as we go. Now, most colleges do not have a payment plan. Typically, they want a full semester or an entire year up front. Now, granted, there are some colleges that do have payment plans. For example, La Sierra in Riverside, California, last time I looked at that, they had a payment plan and it was $75 a month on top of whatever the payment was. So typically the college is going to want a full semester paid up front. The next strategy that parents have told me as a way to pay for college is we're going to borrow the money. And there's a loan out there called the PLUS loan, and it stands for Parent Loan of Undergraduate Students. And theoretically, if your student was admitted to a college that costs $70,000 a year and that student did not receive any scholarships, theoretically, the college could offer 100% of the cost in a Parent Plus loan. So they could offer a $70,000 a plus loan for 1 year of college. Please don't do that. But I just want to tell you what some colleges are doing, and they will offer those incredible loan amounts. I had a conversation with another family. They came in for a free consultation because they wanted to know what the heck it was they were about to sign for. And when you are applying to college and you're admitted, there's several things that are going to happen. The first thing that will happen is you'll get a letter from the college that says, congratulations, you are admitted. And then several weeks later, or maybe even several months later, you'll get a second letter, which is the award letter. And that's what we want, is we want the award letter. The award letter is kind of like an invoice, and it lists all of the different scholarships and things that the college is offering. So this family came in for the complementary college consultation, and they wanted to know what the heck they were about to sign for because the award letter said $25,000 PLUS. And they were very excited because they said, oh, we got a $25,000 scholarship. And I said, I'm sorry, that is not a scholarship, that is a loan. So they had three realizations. The first realization was, this is a loan, we've got to pay it back. The second realization was, this is a loan, we have to pay it back now. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that student loans are deferred as long as the student remains in college, and that is true for student loans. The Parent Plus loan is due, the first payment is due 30 to 60 days after disbursement. So if your student starts college in September, then sometime between October, November, or December, they're going to ask for their first Plus loan payment. So that was their second realization, we've got to pay it back now. And their third realization was, yeah, we can afford that on our income now, but that's for his freshman year. If we were to take out a second Plus loan, and the amount was $525, we can afford that on our income. If we take out a second Plus loan for an additional $25,000, now we're looking at a second $525 loan. So now we'll add those loans together. That's $1,000 a month. Do that again the junior year, that's $1,500. Do it again the senior year, that's $2,000 a month that they're going to start making payments on. And that's just for one of their three kids. And they're asking, how in the world are we going to be able to afford that? Well, I'm happy to report that they did not go that route. In fact, if you go to my website, azcollegeplanning.com, you can click on the testimonials and see some of the things that are in there. And one of those testimonials was from Denise, who stated that her daughter, her youngest daughter finally finished college. Not only did the parents not take out any educational loan debt, but the student also graduated 100% debt-free. And that's exactly where we want our students to start their lives. Okay, colleges are very eager and very excited to hand out loans. What we want is we want to capitalize on the most scholarships and the most grants that we can get. So number 6, as a way to pay for college, is use a home equity line of credit. I won't go into details on that. You guys all know what that means. And then number 7 is liquidate retirement accounts. Please don't do that, but I want to tell you what some families are thinking. So let's create a scenario where we've got a family of 4 and their adjusted gross income is $75,000 and their student is admitted to a college that costs $50,000 a year, and the student received a half scholarship, so they got a $25,000 scholarship, and it cost $25,000 for that student to attend that college. So that's our scenario. They make $75,000. It's going to cost $25,000 for them to go to that college. And they're looking at it going, you know what? We've got money in our 401k, in our IRA. Let's use that. So here's the double whammy on that one. The first one is you're already aware, and that is that if you're under age 59 and a half, you can get hit with those taxes and penalties. We know that one. The second whammy actually hits them the next year, because at $75,000 income, they're going to qualify for this much aid. That $25,000 that they took out of their retirement account is now considered income. So now they're not at $75,000. Now they're at $100,000 of income. They're going to qualify for less aid the next year. So again, before you move money around or any of that stuff, you need to know what the ramifications are, both positive and negative. Sometimes it's smart to move money around, sometimes it's not. Each situation is unique and needs to be evaluated independently. So don't throw the college out based only on the sticker price. We want to examine and look at all of these different numbers. We also want to determine how generous is the college. We also want to ask the question, where does my student fit in your demographic? Are they going to have a positive impact on your rankings? And if that's so, then we should strongly consider applying to those types of colleges. Moving on. The next acronym is EFC, and that stands for Expected Family Contribution. The Expected Family Contribution is a number that is calculated when you fill out the FAFSA form. We're going to talk about the FAFSA in just a second. It asks you a whole bunch of different questions. How much do you have in these various different accounts? And what is your income? How many in your household? And a few other factors go into calculating out your EFC, your Expected Family Contribution. The Expected Family Contribution, that EFC number, is kind of like a deductible for insurance. So God forbid you are in an accident. Before the insurance company pays for or pays to repair or replace your vehicle, you have to come up with that deductible number first. Yes? Of course. The EFC is kind of similar in nature. Before the college gives out any type of scholarship or grant aid, they're going to want to know what your EFC number is, and they're going to ask you to pay that first, regardless of if that number is astronomically ridiculous or not. Case in point is I had a family who came in for a complementary consultation, and they wanted to know why their EFC was $100,000. So here's what that number means, is if their student is admitted to a college that costs $50,000 a year, they could just write a check for that. And one of your students. The reality of it is that wasn't true because their adjusted gross income was $89,000. And I'm asking, your income is 89 and your EFC is more than 100% of your income? How did you do that? And I'm reviewing their documentation, their FAFSA form and all that. And one of the questions on there, on the FAFSA form, is how much do you have in your investment account? And they put on there, well, we have $500,000 in our 401k that we are investing for the future. We also have another $250,000 in a Roth, that's $750,000, And then we got another $50,000 in a brokerage account, $800,000. So they put that number in there, and that falsely overinflated their EFC. Do you remember those three buckets of money, that third bucket of money that's over here that has that umbrella over it? And that umbrella is a retirement system. So what they didn't do is they didn't look at the small, tiny font print on there that states do not include anything under the retirement umbrella. So they falsely reported that and overinflated their EFC, their expected family contribution. So there are two main financial aid forms. As I mentioned earlier, the first one is the FAFSA form. Please write it down as you see here, fasfa.ed.gov. If you go to a search engine and you type in financial aid for college or FAFSA or money for college, please do not click on the first one, because the first one is going to ask you all the same questions that are on the FAFSA form. And then the last question it asks is, would you like us to submit this on your behalf? What's your credit card number? And then they charge you anywhere from $89 to $130 to submit the form. If you go to the correct website, fasfa.ed.gov, there is no charge to submit the FAFSA form. Hence the name, Free Application for Federal Student Aid, FAFSA. Now you know what that stands for. That's the first form. The second form is called the CSS profile. And the CSS profile is administered by College Board. Yes, College Board, they are the entity that make the SAT test, AP test, CLEP, and a few other things. We're living in some very unusual times. The last four or five SAT as well as ACT tests have been canceled due to the social distancing and the pandemic and all that stuff. The next available SAT test is at the end of August. Hopefully that will open up for students to sit and take that test. If they're unable to take the test at a live location, then College Board may administer the test via online. Not sure what's going to happen with that just yet. We'll kind of keep our eyes and our ears open to see. And for those of you that are on my email system, I will send out an email when I find out some more information about what's going on with taking these tests. So College Board also administers the CSS profile financial aid form. The CSS profile asks all the same questions that are on the FAFSA form, and then in the supplemental section asks whatever the college wants to ask. So as an example, in the supplemental section on the CSS profile, MIT asks this question: what is your kid's cell phone number? Now I have a conspiracy theory for that one. Why are they asking for the student's cell phone number on a financial aid form? Again, I have a conspiracy theory for that one. One of the other major differences, I'll mention a couple major differences between the CSS profile and the FAFSA. One of those differences is that the FAFSA does not ask about your primary home equity, where the CSS profile will ask about your primary home equity. The other major difference between the CSS and the FAFSA is there is a charge to submit the CSS, where the FAFSA, it's free to submit it. So the CSS, it's $25 for the first college and $16 for each additional college. And currently there are about 400 or so colleges that utilize the CSS profile. In the United States, we've got over 2,100 four-year colleges. I'm not including the 5,000 or so community colleges. Just the four-year college and universities, there's about 2,100 of those colleges across the United States. And about 400 of those utilize the CSS profile. Typically, it's the more elite colleges, such as Harvard, Stanford, Duke, Princeton, etc. Those types of colleges are going to utilize the CSS profile. Now, I won't tell you the name of the college. I'll just give you their initials, USC. USC requires the CSS profile. And USC is notorious for not admitting a student if that student does not give everything that that college is asking for. And one of those things is the CSS profile. And I've had some families ask me this question. You know what, we make too much money to qualify for any need-based aid. Why should we fill out those forms? Well, it's part of the game. It's part of the dance. And a school like USC, they do require the CSS profile. And one of the reasons why is because they want to know, if we admit you, can your parents pay? So that's one of the reasons why they're asking that question. Now, what's really interesting, if you've been following the whole college thing that's been going on for the last year and a half with that crazy college scandal where people have been paying under the table to get admitted to colleges. One family paid $6.5 million to get their kid admitted into Stanford. I think that's kind of crazy. And then there was the scandal about someone who helped some kids get admitted to USC, and they had falsified their resume, photoshopped some pictures of them playing different sports and stuff like that. Falsify, by the way, means lie. And USC found out about that, and that is going to have a negative impact on their enrollment these next couple of years. So they're going to have to dig out of that. So this next year might be a good year to actually try and apply and get admitted to USC because of this whole crazy scandal that's been going on and stuff. I had another dad say, you know what, we make way too much money to qualify for any need-based aid. Why should we submit these financial aid forms? And again, I said, we want to play the game. And I can't remember which school it was. It was either Georgetown or George Washington University, one of the two George schools in the DC area, which is predominantly a need-based aid only school. What that means, what need-based aid only means, is if a student is admitted and the college determines that there is no financial need, then it will be expensive for that student to go to that college. If the college determines that there is financial need, then they will help them with scholarships and grants. So this particular dad, I'll give you a kind of a little bit of a economic demographic background on him, is he made $1.5 million a year. He had over $2 million in his checking account. I'm like, move the money out of there and get more than 1% interest. Anyway, he had $2 million in his checking account. He had another $4 or $5 million in a brokerage account. He owned 3 or 4 multi-million-dollar houses that had no mortgage on them. Just a very wealthy family. And yes, according to that information, they're not going to qualify for any need-based aid. And I said, let's play the game. The short story of it is that they wanted John, they wanted a student, yes, because they knew that John was going to have a positive impact on their rankings, so they liked that. They also looked at Dad and said, potential future donor. Maybe Dad will decide to donate some money to us later on. So again, we want to play the game, give the college whatever information, whatever documentation they want, so that we can increase our chances of being admitted and also increase our chances of getting some scholarships. So as we move on, I want to talk about the 3 questions that you've got to ask every college. And that first question is, how much need will you meet? So in my example that you see here on the screen, the cost of the college is $42,000. Our EFC is $20,000. Of that $20,000, we qualified for $22,000. How much of that $22,000 are they going to give us? I like to do simple numbers, so we'll kind of break it down this way. We've got a cost of attendance, hypothetically, of $30,000, and we have an EFC of $10,000. Now, that EFC is going to be a static number for that student for that year, regardless of whatever college the student applies to. We have a need of $20,000. Now, with this $20,000 need, what percentage of that are they going to give us? Are they going to give us 100% or 0% or 10%? What percentage are they going to give us? And some colleges like to boast that they meet 100% of our need, and they'll give it to us all in loans. Well, thank you, but no thank you for that one. What we want and what I would like is scholarships and grants. We want free money that we don't have to pay back. So going back to my example here, we qualified for $20,000, and in my example, I'm going to state that that college only meets 75%. So 75% of the $20,000, they're going to give us $15,000 worth of aid, which leaves $5,000 of what's called unmet need. Now, there's a thing out there called gapping, and basically what gapping is, that is not meeting the full need of the student. And when a college looks at a student and says, this student will have little or no impact, no positive impact on our rankings, they may gap that student and make it more expensive for that student to attend that college. I always love to ask this question. When you're on an airplane and you're flying from Sky Harbor to SeaTac in Seattle, as an example, does everybody on the airplane pay the same fee, pay the same fare to go from point A to point B? We're all going from point A to point B, and the answer is no, they don't all pay the same. Some pay more, some pay less, depending on when they bought, how they bought, etc. So sometimes the college will do the same thing, that they will make it more expensive or less expensive for certain students. The most expensive thing on an airplane is an empty seat. And the most expensive thing in a college is also an empty seat. Sometimes colleges are willing to offer some discounts to fill those empty seats. So again, in my example here, we've got an unmet need of $5,000. So we've got a potential cost of, did we skip a, I think I skipped a slide. So we've got a potential cost of $15,000 there. That's the first question. How much need will you meet? And then the second question is, of the aid that you're going to give us, how much will be gift aid and how much will be self-help? And gift aid is scholarships and grants. We want that. We want lots of that. And self-help is broken into two categories. And those two categories are loans and work study. And all y'all know what loans are. And work study is when the student works for the college or one of the college entities, and they will receive a paycheck. And then they can use that paycheck to pay for college, or they can use it to buy books, or use it for pizza money, or really whatever they want. Okay. When my daughter was in college, she was sitting in on a theater class, and the theater professor asked the students, does anybody here know how to sew? And she kind of reluctantly raised her hand and said, I hemmed a pair of pants once. And the professor said, guess what? You are our new seamstress. And she learned a whole ton that year. And at the end of the year, after she had really started perfecting her talents as a seamstress and a costume designer, I asked her to make my Comic-Con costume, and it turned out fabulous, by the way. If you'd like to see it, I can post a picture of it at a later point. So, of the money that you're going to give us, how much will be scholarships and grants? How much will be loans and work study? What is the split on that? And of that $15,000 that we qualified for, We qualified for 20. They're going to only give us 15. Of that 15, what's the split on it? And in simple numbers, I'm going to state that it's 50% gift aid and 50% self-help. So first question, how much need will you meet? Second question is, how much will be gift aid and how much will be self-help? And the third question, which is probably the most important of the three questions, and that is, what is the average graduation timeline? How long is it going to take my student to graduate from your college? And the average college student, please don't be average. The average college student takes 6 years to graduate. And one of the primary reasons why that is because they switch majors. No, I'm not a business major. I think I'll try a biology major. No, philosophy major. That sounds really cool. No, I'm back over here. I'm undeclared. Every time a student changes majors, that pushes the graduation window out further and further. If you go to my website, azcollegeplanning.com, you can click on the college results button and type in the name of any college. And on the screen here, I've got NAU, and the 6-year graduation rate is 53.3%, and the 4-year graduation rate is 36.3%. Again, why is that? And that is primarily because students flip-flop between majors. So one of the things that we do at AZ College Planning is we help students research careers and occupations first, so that when they do go to college, they're more solidified with, yes, this is the direction I want to go into, and are less likely to change your major and change your mind. So let me tell you my story. Yes, that's me on the screen there. That's my high school senior picture. I went in and met with my guidance counselor, and I still remember it today. It was a little tiny office, and I walked in and said, "Hello, Miss Nuss." And she replied, "Hi, JD, how are you? JD, you're a good artist. You should be an art major." And I thought about it for all of about 47 seconds and thought, artists don't make any money. I've got to do something else. Also at that time, there was a TV show on, and maybe you guys remember it. It was 30-something. And Gary and Elliot had an ad agency, had a beautiful office, beautiful wives, all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I'll be a graphic arts major. Also at that same time, I was talking with a friend of mine on the phone who was a freshman at Biola University, who really encouraged me to attend that college. And he says, JD, you've got to come to this school. It's so awesome. The girls here are so cute. And we have the most amazing beach bonfire parties. And I asked the question, do they have a graphics department? And he said, yes. And I said, dude, I'm in. And that's how much thought went into me picking my career major in college and all that stuff. What ended up happening is I got an internship in my junior year of college at a graphics house and decided I don't want to do this the rest of my life, and had to reset. So again, what do we do at AZ College Planning is we help students research careers, majors, and colleges within that order, so that when they do go to college, you're more solidified. Yes, this is the direction I want to go into, and graduate on time in 4 years or less. So I want to tell you a story about Lynn. When she came into the office, I was asking her some questions. And when you come into the office as well, I'm going to ask you these questions. And one of the questions I ask is, do you have any dream schools or any colleges that you're thinking about? And Lynn's dad piped up and said she's going to NAU because that's all I can afford. And I said, let's play the game. And part of the playing the game is applying to 6 to 12 colleges. And I don't remember exactly, but I think she applied to 7 colleges. Of the 7 schools, she was admitted to 5 of them. And of the 5, 2 of them fell off the wayside for one reason or another. And it really came down to these 3 colleges: Willamette University in Oregon, Whitman College in the state of Washington, and NAU. Now, when I helped Lynn identify these colleges, what do you think Dad's first question was? Well, his first question was, what's the cost? And a few years ago, the cost to attend these colleges was $45,000. And NAU was about $20,000 for 1 year. And when I mentioned that Willamette and Whitman were $45,000, today they're hovering around $60,000. When I mentioned that to Lynn's dad, he had a coronary right in the office. We pulled out the defibrillator. Let's play the game. And again, we want to play the game by applying to 6 to 12 colleges. The worst thing that any student can do is apply to one college. Because if the student applies to one college and is admitted to the one college, what else does that college have to do to get that student to go there? Nothing. Now, if that college has to compete with 3 or 4 or more colleges, then that college must offer an incentive. And the incentives that we want are scholarships. So the first school that admitted Lynn was Willamette University. And Willamette offered her $25,000 in scholarships, and Dad's net cost was about $20,000 for a year. Lynn was on cloud 9 for days. Dad, not quite so much, because we still got a $20,000 gap. The next school that admitted her was NAU, and Dad's out-of-pocket cost was $10,650. Dad says, I can do that. I'd rather not, but I could do that one. And then the last school that admitted her was Whitman College. And Whitman offered her $40,750 in scholarships and grants each year. She got that all 4 years. Now, yes, she had to maintain a minimum GPA in order to renew that scholarship package, yes. She did get that all 4 years. What was awesome was that scholarship package also included 2 study abroads. She did one in Peru and one in Japan, and that was covered by those scholarships as well. So here's the question. Why did they give her an amazing scholarship package? Is it because they were kind and generous and benevolent? Or was it because they wanted her? Okay? Because they knew that she was going to have a positive impact on their rankings. And that's the answer, is she was going to make a positive impact on their rankings. And one of those rankings was a girl going into a mostly male-dominated major. Don't ask me which one it is. I don't remember. That was one category that helped her there. Another category was Arizona kid going to a school in the state of Washington. And Whitman was able to state, we have geographic diversity. We've got kids from here, there, all over the place. So when I'm helping students identify colleges to potentially apply to, I've got all of these things rattling around in the back of my brain. How is a student going to impact this college's rankings? Positive, neutral, or negative? So let's go over comparison really quick here. So on one side over here, we've got ASU. On the other side, we've got Claremont McKenna. We'll kind of blast through these numbers real quick. So we've got a sticker price of ASU of $29,891. Now again, if your student's looking at Barrett or the honors colleges, you can add some dollars on there. We have a family, their EFC is $8,320. And we did some things strategically to get them to that number. So if we do the math on that, we have a need of $21,577. Now, ASU is not extremely generous. They will meet 61% of the family's need. So of the $21,000 that we qualified for, they're going to only give $13,162. So we've got an unmet need of $8,415. So the of the $13,000 that they're actually going to give us, what's the split on it? It's 53%, 47%. So they're going to give the student $6,976 in gift aid, and about $6,100 in self-help for an upfront cost of $16,735. How did I get those two numbers? It's our EFC plus our unmet need equals that amount. On the flip side, we got Claremont McKenna that has a sticker price of $73,000. Our EFC is still the same, $8,320, because that's going to be a static number regardless of the college the student applies to and attends. And we've got a need of $65,000. Claremont McKenna happens to be a wealthy college. They have $250 million in their endowment system, and they are very generous with aid. They're going to give this student 92% in gift aid, so they're going to give the student about $60,000 in scholarships and grants, $5,000 in self-help for an upfront cost of $8,320. But is that really our true cost? No, there's one more number that needs to be calculated in there, and that is the self-help needs to be paid back in either loans or in man hours. And when we add that for ASU, then our truer net cost is $22,900 on the ASU side. And then at Claremont McKenna, our net cost is $13,577. Please do not throw out a college based solely on the sticker price until you've run all these different numbers. Okay? So now tell me which college is less expensive. Again, don't throw out a college based solely on the sticker price until you've looked at these numbers. You are waiting for this one. The number one way to get more money is apply to 8 to 10 colleges and then negotiate. So again, going back to my statement, the worst thing that a student can do is apply to one college because they can't use other colleges as leverage. And yes, we can use leverage. Hey, college A gave me this much scholarship. What will you, college B, do to match or beat that? And in certain situations, yes, these colleges will match or even beat those scholarship packages because they want to steal students from other colleges. Again, what's the most expensive thing in a college? An empty seat. And if they can sell that empty seat at 10% off or 25% off or 50% or even 80% off, it's better than getting zero. So here's a couple examples. McConnell was admitted to NYU. He's going into his senior year this next year, the 2020-2021 school year. And so he'll be a senior graduating in the spring of 21. And he was offered $65,820 in scholarships. He got that every year, and his parents' net cost was $8,914. So NYU looked at him and said, yes, he's going to have a positive impact on our rankings. And of course, he did not apply as a theater major because NYU looked at him and said, oh, great, we need more of other majors because 40% of the students at NYU are theater majors. So they looked at McConnell and said, yeah, awesome. We want him. He'll make a positive impact. Let's give him a spot. So Rohit applied to UT Dallas, and I'll kind of zoom in on it. What he was offered there is all tuition and mandatory fees for 4 years. He was offered a $4,000 per semester cash stipend. He was also offered a $1,500 per semester on-campus housing stipend. When you add that together, that's $11,000 that he was being offered in stipends. And when you subtract that from the cost of his dorm and his meal ticket, he was netting $3,000. So what's good? Good is getting admitted to college. What's better? Getting a scholarship. What's better than a scholarship? Getting full tuition. What's better than full tuition? Getting a full ride. What's better than a full ride? This, getting paid to go to college. And that's what he was offered at that college. Nicole was admitted to Wash U. She was offered $45,000 in scholarships. Her parents' net cost was 11 grand. Bruce was admitted to Notre Dame. He just graduated this last spring, and he was offered $51,000 in scholarships per year. His parents' net cost 13 grand. It was less expensive for Bruce to attend Notre Dame than it was for him to attend ASU. Now, JD, are all these students super brainiacs and have perfect GPAs and perfect test scores? No. Here's one of my students. I won't tell you her name, but she had a whopping 2.3 GPA, and yet she was admitted to Spring Hill College in Alabama, and it was less expensive after scholarships and grants for her to attend Spring Hill than it would have been for her to attend ASU. So no, you don't have to have perfect grades. I love this story about Tanner. When Tanner came into the office, he was asking some questions and said, JD, my goal is to fly jets for the Air Force. I'm going to apply to the Air Force Academy, and that's the only school I'm going to apply to. And I said, please play the game. Apply to all the military academies, and then also apply to every ROTC program and have a backup plan on top of all of that stuff. And he agreed to all that. And we had a conversation. He called to schedule a meeting, and he says, JD, I've been doing some research on the college's website, on the Air Force's website, and I found that the minimum ACT score is 25. And I got a 26. What do you think? And I said, they're going to take your application and throw it in the trash. And he was surprised. I said, you've got to increase your scores if that's the school you want to go to, so that you're in that higher third category where you will make a positive impact on their rankings. And Tanner decided he was going to take the test again. And we have a fantastic program. One of my classes is called Beat the Test. And in that class, we teach students how to beat the test, because both the SAT and the ACT are standardized tests. Because they are a standardized test, they have to follow a pattern. So we teach students how to identify these patterns. Tanner went through the program. He ended up with a 29 or a 30 ACT score, got admitted to the Merchant Marine Academy, and is now flying jets for the Air Force. I love to tell this story as well. This is Jonathan. And when Jonathan came in, I helped him identify a bunch of schools. One of the schools was George Fox University in Portland, Oregon. And he got admitted there. And then in the end portion of his senior year, sometime in April, we scheduled a meeting and had a conversation between Jonathan, his parents, and myself. And his parents said, we are willing to pay X dollars for you to go to college. Anything above that is going to be on you. And Jonathan's award package was $5,000 short from what mom and dad were willing to pay for college. And Jonathan says, I've got an idea. What if I call the college and ask for them to defer admission? And yes, you can do that. At almost every college, you call them up or send them an email and say I'm deferring my admission for 1 year, and they'll hold your spot for a year. So Jonathan says, I'll defer admission for a year. I'll go get a job. I'll save up $5,000 and then go to college the next year. I said, that's your plan for 1 year? What are you going to do the next year? You going to take another year off, get another job, and save up some money the next year, and then just kind of leapfrog it every other year and take 8 years to graduate? No. Here's what I would like you to do. And I instructed Jonathan what I wanted him to do, which was to reach out to the college recruiter and ask this question. Is there any additional aid that's available? So I said, Jonathan, I want you to reach out to your recruiter. You know who your recruiter is at this college, don't you? Now I'm asking him loaded questions because I had already instructed him how to develop rapport with the recruiter. "Oh yeah, I know who the recruiter is," Jonathan said. I said, "Great, call him up and I want you to say this. My parents are willing to help me go to college. They're willing to spend X dollars. And thank you very much for admitting me. Between what my mom and dad are willing to pay for college and what you've offered me in scholarships, I'm $5,000 short. What can I do?" And poof, magically another $5,000 appeared. Not only did Jonathan go to that college, he graduated in 4 years. So that's the story of Jonathan. Another example is Adele. She's going to TCU, Texas Christian University, and she was offered $216,000 in scholarships for 4 years. I already mentioned Bruce going to Notre Dame. $204,000 is what he got over 4 years. Cole is going to LA Tech. Not only did he get 100% of tuition covered, but he got 100% of tuition covered plus some additional money. Here's another student, Chad. He went to Vanderbilt. And the short story of it is, when Chad came into the office, I helped him to identify a handful of schools, and one of those schools was Vandy. And I'm talking with him and his mom pulls me aside and says, "Please don't tell him to go to Vanderbilt. Please tell him not to apply there. Yes, he has the things that Vandy's looking for, grades and test scores and leadership and all that stuff. Yes, he has the ability to be admitted, but we, the parents, we don't have the ability to pay $60,000 a year to go there." And I said, and I encouraged the student to apply. I also encouraged the mom to step away from the ledge. It's okay. We'll get through this together. And I said, let's play the game. So he did apply to Vandy and was offered $231,000 in scholarships to attend that school over the course of 4 years. And I got a very nice email from Chad's mom after that. I mentioned McConnell going to NYU already, and I also mentioned Nicole. I got another student, Trevor, going to TCU, $212,000 in scholarships. I've got another student who went to NAU and graduated NAU 100% debt-free. He graduated with no student loan debt. That's exactly where we want our students to start their lives, is to graduate without student loan debt or as little student loan debt as possible. So you're next. If you do the work, follow the plan, do the things, there is a strong possibility that you will get into some really great colleges and get some amazing scholarship packages. How do we do that? Well, we're going to do that by doing things on purpose, by looking at colleges, determining what the college wants, and do those things so that we can present ourselves in such a way that that college says, yes, we need you to come to our college because you have a positive impact on our rankings. So the earlier you start in the process, the better the results. I had a conversation with Dad and an older sister and found out, hey, we got a younger sister in this group. I asked, have you ever heard about the academic talent search for 8th graders? And Dad said, what's that? I explained it, and they jumped on board. And fast forward to today, she was admitted to U of A, and she got a 100% full ride. And that is because we started the process early. So when is the best time to plant a tree? You've probably heard this ancient Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is now. So the earlier you start on the process, the easier it is to obtain some incredible scholarship packages. Here's another example. A student was admitted to a college. He was offered $39,900 in scholarships. So I want to help tell your students' success story. So I want to give you a couple little tips. If you have a junior or a sophomore or even a freshman in high school, because all of the summer programs have been canceled because of this crazy pandemic, there's some other things that you can do. And one of those other things is do some virtual volunteering. So consider doing some virtual volunteering so that you can separate yourself from the masses and win a seat, as well as earning some incredible scholarships. So when your student is applying for college a year from now, or 2, or maybe even 3 years from now, because they are a freshman, sophomore, or a junior, if they can put on their resume, because of the pandemic and everything was canceled, I was able to do some virtual volunteering, that's going to definitely separate those students from the masses. If you have a class of 21 student, now do this now. Have your student reach out to each of the colleges that he or she is going to apply to and ask, what are the new admission requirements? You're probably aware that some of the colleges are now waiving their SAT or ACT test requirements. MIT announced that they are lowering the bar by no longer requiring SAT subjects tests. You want to find out what the new requirements are and then do more. Do more than that. If necessary, retake the SAT. Do plan on taking the SAT or ACT sometime in the fall. Again, hopefully they're going to offer it in a live classroom setting. If not, there's a potential that they will do some type of online test for the SAT or the ACT. So what's really interesting is I came across this document, and it's the here we go. It's the CARES. What we care about in this time of crisis, a collective statement from college admissions deans. So kind of briefly go over this document. And the title of it is The CARES Counts in Crisis. This was recently published within the last couple weeks, and there's about 300 or so colleges that all collaborated on this document. You know, because of this crazy pandemic and COVID-19 and what's going on, what do we want from students? And the first statement, or number one on there, is self-care. Of course, take care of yourself. Try and stay healthy and all that stuff. Number 2 on here is academic work. Do the best you can with your GPA and your grades. Because we are living in these crazy times, some of the high schools around the valley here have locked GPAs in March. So whatever you had in March, whatever grade you had in that class, that's what your grade is. Now, what I'm going to guess what's going to potentially happen is that some of these colleges are going to mandate that they want to see mid-year transcripts, which would include the fall of your senior year. So if you've got a 2021 high school graduate, some of these colleges are going to ask for mid-year transcripts. So it is incredibly important to maintain your grades and or increase your grades for the fall of your senior year. Another thing that they're looking at, number 3 on there, is services and contributions. Are you doing any type of volunteer work? We understand that some of the volunteer stuff has been canceled. But again, here's what I'm suggesting is to volunteer, do some virtual volunteering. Number 4 is family contributions. What are you doing to help out with your family? Some of your students are helping out with siblings, or maybe caring for an elderly or a sick relative. Colleges want to know about those types of things. So as we conclude, what we do at AZ College Planning is we'll do some one-on-one meetings with the student, and either they'll be in my office or we can also do some virtual meetings as well. We'll also have several parent meetings, and parent meetings will be more on the financial side, looking at your numbers and all that stuff. And then I host a variety of different classes. I mentioned the Beat the Test class. If you're on my email list, I'll be sending out an email in the next week or two with the next Beat the Test class, which will be sometime in August. Also, I've got the How to Study class, How to Market Yourself class, a resume class, application and essay class, some parent classes, and more. So if you would like to come in for a complimentary college consultation, please send me an email and I'll contact you and we'll schedule a meeting. Please include a phone number that you can be reached at during the day, and we'll schedule something. And when you come in, whether you come into the office or we do a virtual meeting, please make sure that your student is present, because I want to have a roundtable conversation. And during that conversation, I want to see if there's a good fit between all of us. And if there's a good fit, at that point, I will offer an extension for you to become a client. I will be very, very direct and say, yes, I can help you, or no, I cannot help you. If I say, no, I can't help you, I will point you in the right direction. Here's the things that you need to do. Go and do those things. And if I say, yes, I can help you, at that point, I will offer for you to become a client. And what I charge for my services is $39.97. I am very good at what I do. And when I take on a new client, I already know in the back of my mind that we're going to get 3, 4, or 5, or even 10 times what my service fee investment is that you'll earn in scholarships and grants. So again, if you would like to schedule a complimentary college consultation, please send me an email, jd@azcollegeplanning, and include your name and your phone number. I'll give you a call and we'll schedule a consultation. Thank you very much for attending. Please do tell your friends about AZ College Planning. Some other really exciting things that have been happening at the AZ College Planning office is I've been on TV. It looks like I'm going to be on TV a little bit more regularly. So do watch for me on 3TV, Fox 10, and some of the other local news channels around here. I'm also going to be doing a podcast next week. For those of you that are on my email list, I'll send out links to so that you can watch those TV interviews, and you can also listen to the podcast and all that stuff. Again, thank you very much for attending. Have a wonderful, hopefully cooler evening. And again, tell your friends about it. Thank you very much, and good night.